Former President Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, could face criminal prosecution for refusing to cooperate fully with a probe into the deadly attack on the U.S. Capitol earlier this year, after the House of Representatives voted this week to hold him in contempt of Congress.
Mark Meadows has to testify.
The U.S. House of Representatives voted 222 to 208 on Tuesday to seek criminal contempt of Congress charges against Mark Meadows, Donald Trump's former chief of staff, for refusing to cooperate with a congressional probe of the January 6th Capitol riot. Only 2 Republicans sided with Democrats in the vote, which will refer the matter to the Department of Justice to decide whether to pursue charges. Ahead of Tuesday's vote, the Select Committee investigating January 6th revealed Meadows handed over panicked text messages from Republicans and Fox News hosts, pleading with him the day of to tell Trump to call off his followers. Representative Liz Cheney, the Republican vice chair of the committee, said Meadows' texts were not enough and that he was legally and morally obligated to testify as well.
Mark Meadows' testimony is necessary to inform our legislative judgments. Yet he has refused to give any testimony at all, even regarding non-privileged topics. He is in contempt of Congress.
Republicans said a contempt recommendation was premature, given lawsuits filed by Trump and Meadows arguing that the former president's communications should be protected by executive privilege. But Democrats and the January 6th committee members said going to the courts is an effort to run out the clock. A federal appeals court last week rejected Trump's request to withhold documents because of executive privilege, noting that President Joe Biden has already authorized their release. Meadows becomes the 3rd Trump associate to face a criminal contempt charge. The Justice Department, at the House's request, has brought similar charges against Trump's former strategist, Steve Bannon.
Well, for more on this story, we're now joined by a strategist and 2018 GOP congressional candidate, Brian Leid. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, Brian. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, and hello to the South African audience.
So, Mark Meadows, person of interest, how much does he know about what happened that day that this inquiry needs to know? We're trying to find out.
Well, let me first say that I'm appearing here today not on behalf of Mark, but just to speak about what's happening. And based on what I have seen, what I have heard Mark say publicly, is that neither Mark Meadows or anyone in the West Wing had any prior knowledge to what was going to happen on January 6th. Mark has turned over over 1,000 documents, 2,400 text messages. So he and his attorney have been extremely cooperative, extremely transparent with the January 6th committee. And it wasn't until the January 6th committee changed their tune and asked Mark to provide privileged, executive privileged information, that my understanding is that is when Mark decided to pull back from testifying to the committee.
But the president of the country has said that there's nothing privileged now, so why would they assume that it's privileged?
Executive privilege is something that goes back for many, many years. It is literally a privilege that presidents from both sides of the aisle have had for many, many decades. In fact, President Obama exerted his executive privilege on multiple occasions. So I think what you're seeing here is a double standard at play. You're seeing a Democratic Party in America that is still obsessed with anything related to the former President Donald Trump. They're obsessed with doing everything and anything they can to try and drive a wedge between the American people. And I think that what you're seeing happen right now is political theater at its best. And I think the American people very much see this for what it is and being a partisan witch hunt. I've got to tell you, while I'm not speaking on behalf of Mark, I do know Mark. Mark is a good man. He's a family man. He's a faith-driven man. And finally, he's a patriot that loves this country and has dedicated his life to serving this country. Surely Mark is one of the most high-profile officials attached to President Trump, and I do believe that's why Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leadership through their January 6th committee, that's why they're going after him the way that they are. But I just reiterate what I said, that this is political theater at its best. The American people are sick and tired of it. I am sick and tired of it. It's time for us to start healing as a country instead of continuing to do everything that the Democrats continue to do everything they can to try and divide us as Americans. That's what I'm seeing.
All right, so let me tell you what I'm seeing as somebody far away from this story, is that something tragic happened on the 6th of January. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. And what we're seeing is Democrats saying, please, let's find out what happened, and Republicans fighting as hard as they can not to have the committee, not to have the inquiry, not to have this issue investigated. So it sounds as if the only issue is that it's political. However, the real story is a lot happened on that day, and Mike Pence's life was threatened, as well as other congressmen. Isn't that really the thing that everybody should be getting to?
I will say this. What happened on January 6th was certainly not our finest moment as a country. With that said, I think that the issue here is that the Democrats, in my opinion, are doing everything they can to try and divide this nation. You just said that from your perspective, you think Republicans are doing everything that we can not to cooperate. At the very opening of this clip, I mentioned how Mark Meadows, for example, has turned over 1,000 documents, 2,400 text messages. How is that not cooperating with the process?
Let's start at the beginning. This was supposed to have been done by the Senate, Congress, and all of that was blocked. And that's how it ended up as a committee, right? Is that not what happened? The Republicans blocked the inquiry?
Well, you know, you're asking questions about what Republicans did or didn't do. Why don't we ask some questions about what Democrats did or didn't do? You want to talk about January 6th. You know, how is it possible that one of our country's most protected and secure facilities in our nation was able to be penetrated by the general public? Have you seen the same videos that I've seen where the doors are being opened and people are being ushered into the building? Have you seen those videos?
We have seen those videos, and I guess maybe.
So how do you explain a situation like that? Because the only thing that I can understand from something like that is that the people that were in power in Congress, which are the Democrats, didn't do anything to stop this from happening. They could have shut the doors. They could have called the National Guard in. They could have done a lot of different things to make sure that moment never happened. But that didn't happen.
This is not what we saw. But anyway, let's get back to the present. Why not just show up to the committee and share what you know? Why not just say, look, this I think is executive privilege, and you'll get a ruling on that? Why not, if you genuinely care about what happened on the day, and if President Trump did have something to do with it, isn't that something you'd like to know?
So there have been several Republicans that have cooperated. When it comes to executive privilege, that is something that both Democrats and Republicans have enjoyed. So I guess I would turn the question back and I would ask, you know, why did the January 6th committee say to an individual like Mark Meadows, turn over all of this documentation, then come appear before us, and then at the 23rd hour, they completely changed the rules of engagement and said that they were now seeking information about executive privilege, which I believe Mark has said that he would protect. As the former chief of staff to the president, he said he is going to protect the executive privilege.
Brian.
Yes.
If Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong, there would be no need to have executive privilege over those communications. Agreed?
You know, I don't know where we're going with this interview. To be honest with you, it seems like you keep coming at me. I mean, I've given you my perspective and been gracious, you know, with my time and what I'm saying. I told you what I think. I told you.
I'm sorry that you feel that I'm coming at you. Again, I'm just trying to understand, because there's a committee that's trying to get to the bottom of what happened on January the 6th, and what you're telling me is that Mr. Meadows is respecting executive privilege, and I'm just wondering if there's nothing to hide, why would that even come up?
You know, I think that's something you're gonna have to ask him yourself. What I can tell you, based on what I know about the situation, is that Mark is respecting executive privilege, just like other former chiefs of staffs. A lot of Democrats have also respected in the past. So I don't think that if there's anything that Mark is looking to hide. Mark has gone on record and said publicly that he and no one in the West Wing had any prior knowledge about what would potentially happen on January 6th. So I don't know why we just don't end the conversation on that. Mark has said publicly that he had no knowledge whatsoever about what was going to happen.
All right, let's assume that the courts do rule, because this is before the courts now. If the courts say that it's not executive privilege, knowing Mark the way that you do, will he then go before the committee and tell what he knows? Is he likely to do that from what you know of him?
You know, I'm not at liberty to speak on behalf of what Mark would or wouldn't do. I'm just providing my perspective, sir, based on what I know about Mark and what I know publicly and privately. I think he's been over backwards to cooperate with this committee, and I think he was fully intending on cooperating with this committee until they changed the rules of engagement. And when they changed the rules of engagement, he changed his rules of engagement. You know, sometimes in life you have to fight fire with fire, and I think that's what he's doing right now.
All right, but the American people, I guess, at the end are the ones that are going to be victims, because two political parties are going at each other, and it doesn't look like we'll ever get to the real story because of that.
Well, let me say this much. You know, certainly there's a lot of division in our country right now, Democrat versus Republican. But something that I want to share with you and share with your audience, that, you know, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican. And there are so many situations just in this past year alone where I have tried to build bridges to the other side. I have had an open mind and really tried to have meaningful conversations with people to try and find a middle ground. And I know a lot of my conservative friends have also tried to do the same. Unfortunately, we don't seem to be having a party on the other side that wants to meet us in the middle. Anytime I try and engage with someone on the left to have, like I said, a meaningful conversation, the only thing they want to talk about is Trump. Trump, 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 Trump. They are absolutely obsessed with this individual. And honestly, as a former congressional candidate myself from 2018, and as someone that really does love this country and loves our values and what we stand for, I would like to see Democrats and Republicans put aside this partisan bickering and come back to the middle and start doing the work of the American people. In America, we have homicide rates all throughout our country. In my hometown of Philadelphia, homicides are up 60% from 2018 to today. Why are the members of Congress that represent Philadelphia not doing anything or talking in Congress about how they're going to fix homicide? Why are they not talking about how we're going to make a meaningful dent in the poverty that is happening all throughout our country right now? Real solutions, real things that actually affect the everyday American don't seem to ever be talked about. But when it comes to political theater, That's what they're spending their time on right now. I'd love to see Democrats and Republicans working together to do things to structurally fix some of the problems in our country right now. We've got to come together as a nation, and we're not going to come together as a nation if we keep looking backwards. We have to look forward. We have to find ways to help each other, partner with each other. And I can tell you right now, from my perspective as a conservative and from tons of my friends as conservatives, if there are Democrats out there and progressives out there that want to meet us in the middle, you're going to find that we're willing to meet you in the middle. But they have to want to meet us in the middle. And so far, based on what we're seeing publicly and privately, it doesn't seem like they want to meet us in the middle.
All right. And perhaps finally, is Mark Meadows prepared to go to jail for Donald Trump?
What kind of question is that?
Well, if he is found guilty for contempt of Congress and not cooperating, and he gets prosecuted and found guilty, might he not face a jail term?
I think we're going to have to see what happens. Let's see if it even gets passed in the Senate first, which I don't think it will.
Okay.
And then we'll cross that bridge when it happens.
All right. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, Barry Leid. I'm sorry if you felt that I was coming at you, but from South Africa, we just want an understanding of what's going on in your country. But thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight.
Thank you.